Hi everyone, I'm Amrita for and from the Health Collective, and I'm looking at creating a sort of new series. We're going to try and do these weekly catch up sessions where I'm going to share a bit of what I've been reading, what I've been learning, and see what resonates with you. I do think that I have spent the better part of the last year and a half, frantically upskilling, trying to make sure that I don't lose any time and that I can really be at the top of my game. I'm someone who's really interested in multiple areas, so I think the term is multi-hyphenate. What we're going to talk about here, though, has a lot more to do with mental health, emotional health, wellness, and I'll be sharing a little bit more on a forthcoming podcast. But today I wanted to share something I've been looking at, which is more about emotional health and wellness, and what that connect really has to do, what it has to say for all of us. Because I think that we do tend to downplay the role emotions really play in our lives, whether it's in a professional setting, whether it's in a personal setting. We tend to think that we are more rational, more logical, and sometimes we repress what we're feeling. Sometimes we, of course, don't acknowledge feelings at all, and sometimes we judge ourselves for what we're feeling. There's no right or wrong here, but we have learned several things along the last 8 years of the Health Collective, and I've learned several things from therapists, from learning from people, experts, talking to people, sharing stories, sharing my own stories and my own journey as well. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about emotions in a very friendly way. So there's no jargon. If there's jargon, you can call me out in the comments. I'm going to center this around a course I did by the super famous psychologist Susan David. Some of you might have heard of her. She's phenomenal. I think she's up at Harvard, if I'm not mistaken. I signed up for a course on emotional agility. And I really thought this could be something cool for me to also learn about how to adapt some of these lessons into the workplace. I'm, of course, running a startup at present, and I'll keep you posted on how that goes. But essentially, emotional agility, she talks about it being the ability to change or maintain our behaviors to live in alignment with our values as being an important way of being. So when we're emotionally agile, we're flexible, we're adaptive, we're better positioned to manage our goals, she says. I'm not going to get into the whole thing because, of course, she does have a course, and this is entirely something I'd recommend. I do want to talk a little bit about emotions, though. And, she's someone who talks about how it's really important for us to learn to label our emotions to understand what's really going on. So one thing Susan David says, and one thing all of us, who've been on this planet for this many years know, is that this too will pass. As she puts it, most emotions eventually pass. We know that, using a rational part of the brain, that when I'm sitting here happy, that's going to pass. When I'm sitting here sad or a bit low, that's also going to pass. For most of us, emotions will eventually pass. And I think most of us know that. And, those of you who have kids, you try to let your kids know that. We do seem to have, though, this uncanny sort of feeling that we should hold on to certain emotions and we should shun certain emotions. I'll get into a little bit more what Susan David says, but I'd like to take a second. I'm going to pause here for you to think about this. Are there times in the recent past where you may have been really happy to hold on to an emotion? It could be joy. It could be literal happiness. It could be something positive as far as you're concerned that you try to hold on to. Think about that for a second. And if you want, you can write it down. I'm going to think about it and write it down too. Recently, I'd say the last 6 months or so. Yeah, you can pause this, of course, as well, and come back to this later. So there would also have been times in the recent past where you had an emotion you kind of didn't want to acknowledge, or you wanted to sort of distance yourself from. I'm pretty sure you've had those, because I've had those. I recently had a friend who was talking to me about something confidential, of course, but something similar, which made me think of doing this video, because I shared with her a bit of what I'd learned from Susan David and from so many of these other sort of readings and essays and articles that we go through. So, not to mention therapy, I should call out my own therapist, who also told me at one point to sit with my feelings. It's a very difficult thing to do. So the theory is essentially that we tend to ascribe values to feelings, right? We're like, happy is good, sad, bad. Think of another feeling like surprise, usually good, fear, bad, anger, bad. we tend to have this kind of value judgment that's kind of conditioned from childhood on up to adulthood. And what ends up happening with that is that we start essentially ascribing this value system to our own feelings. So when I'm, not happy, when I'm low, I start feeling like a bit cringy and like I want to like shake it off. I want to like distance myself from what's happening, to the point that I might stop acknowledging the feeling that I'm having, right? And that is a challenge because, not only are you judging yourself, you're also starting to repress those feelings. You start doing this to other people as well. And, with the mental health storytelling and advocacy work we've done for so many years, 8 years this month, we've heard that, people will tend to, sometimes tell people who have depression or anxiety, just shake it off. Don't think about it. If you don't think about it, it's going to go away. Don't focus on your problems. These are all problematic in various ways, and I'm not going to get into that in this video, but I'm going to ask you to think about what it does to you if you start judging your own feelings. What does it do to a child if you start judging their feelings when they're scared or they're crying and you're like, stop, don't cry, don't be sad. You start essentially exporting this value system, which is not actually based in anything. There is nothing inherently or intrinsic to that value system. It is not that happiness is good and sadness is bad. We need both. I mean, if you want to take another step back, would you even recognize you are happy if you didn't have a counterpoint to it, right? Or vice versa. All of these emotions are actually signposts and signals, and much, much smarter people than me will tell you what the role they have to play in your life. For the moment, I want you to just think about the last time you judged yourself for emotion, kind of give yourself a hug. Kind of be like, it's okay, be kinder to yourself. This is something that I'm learning at the grand old age of my early 40s. Now, I do want to show this to you because I did think it was interesting to see. Just one of the things that I found helpful, and I actually thought that Susan David, this was like literally such an aha moment in that course, Emotional Agility, which I told you that I did. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people would resonate. She essentially says, you look at these basic emotions, and I think, she talks a lot about the way many of us react to our feelings. You have bottlers, people who bottle up their feelings. You have brooders, those who can't really let go, and then struggle to compartmentalize. And you really don't want to be in either category. You want to learn how to deal with your feelings. And again, remember, this is coming from a point of view also of your workplace. And I would really encourage those of you who are managers to do this course by Susan David, because it really does impact your teams as well as yourselves. What I found fascinating about this list is it really does help you to think about what's the actual feeling that you're feeling, what's the actual emotion that you're feeling. And as she says, words matter, those labels matter. So you might be saying that I'm angry, I get angry all the time, or this person has an temper problem or has an anger problem, anger management problem. But actually, what's going on underneath that anger? They could be grumpy, they could be frustrated, they could be hangry. That happens to me a lot. If when you're hungry and angry, you could be any of those feeling words, which it actually helps you to sit down and think through what you're actually feeling. And I think that this is something I'd love to leave you guys with. Tell us what you think about this, and if you're able to use this in some way. If you've done that Emotional Agility course or any other course, let me know in the comments, or you can email us. I'll put the email up on right now. You can email team@healthcollective.in. I hope that pops up. If I'm doing this right, it should. And again, I'm going to put the course in here so you can see this, and then I have minimal editing to do as we go. I found this super helpful. And as I said, I use this actually for a friend as well. And I think that I'm definitely going to tag Susan David so she knows how helpful this is. I do think that, we need to start thinking a little bit more about those feelings, that umbrella feeling she calls. Think about what's actually going on underneath the hood. And that's going to help us not just understand ourselves better, which is, of course, a beautiful thing. It's going to help us also in our day-to-day. It just helps you become a little bit more functional, a bit more thoughtful, a bit more present. Okay, I'm going to stop there for the moment. Tell me if this makes sense. Tell me if you like this. This is potentially a new series we're going to kick off with some consistency and a regular cadence. I'm aiming for weekly. These are lessons learned with me, Amrita Tripathi. Thanks so much.